I'm going to introduce to you the moderator of this panel, Sean Applegate. He is the Director of Systems Engineering for Riverbed Technologies. He has spent the last 15 years focused on improving user productivity and IT efficiencies for large organizations with distributed workforces. He has helped many IT organizations achieve new levels of effectiveness, efficiency, greater productivity, leaner operations, and return on investments. He currently leads the Riverbed Technology Department of Defense Engineering team, so please join me in welcoming Sean.
Thank you very much, Jessica. All right, so in this session today, we're going to cover primarily enterprise architecture and governance, right? How do we not only plan the future, but connect it with the business users themselves, the stakeholders, and also the policies that go with that, right? Which can be very challenging in many cases. All in the meantime, in today's budget cycles, right, we have sequestration. So how are we going to do that with the same money or less money as we've had in the future, which always can be a challenge. So we have two very interesting speakers here today that come from very different backgrounds. We have Bill Kehoe from Washington State. He's the CIO for King County, leading an IT department, about 400 people. I'll let Bill kind of speak to what he does and his team, but it's linked. But they've done some very innovative things. I think at a federal level, they're somewhat ahead of the curve. They maybe don't have as much red tape, a little more nimble and agile things they can do. We have Dodd Santosa, sorry. And Dodd comes from a cabinet-level agency at Department of Interior, where he's at the National Business Center. And they've done a lot of very innovative things as far as shared services and pushing forward in this shared architecture where they can cut a lot of costs and really do things at a strategic level that benefit a lot of people within his large organization. So with that said, Bill, if you could give us a little more background on yourself, and then we'll follow up with Dodd's background, and we'll go into some questions.
Great. So Bill Kehoe, I'm from the great state of Washington, and it's great to be here with all of you. I'm learning a lot already from the federal perspective, so I appreciate all the engagement in the various sessions. It's been wonderful. In King County, I think we have 2 million residents. We're one of the largest counties in the nation, and I've been the CIO there for approximately 3 years. Before that, I was with the state of Washington, and I was the CIO for essentially the Department of Licensing, DMV, for the state. And throughout my career, I've always been involved with enterprise architecture. At the state level, I was part of the state enterprise architecture team, and we developed guidelines and standards for things like identity management, data domains, email, voice over IP, service-oriented architecture, that essentially the agencies in the state were, it was the guidelines for them to follow as they entered into these various technologies and really adopted some of these standards. And then within my agency at the state, we had an enterprise architecture program and also adopted a governance structure that really put projects and decision-making based on enterprise architectural principles that really guided the agency in terms of how projects aligned with our strategy and also how we aligned with the business strategy. At King County, enterprise architecture did not exist when I got there, and so I had to really look at our organization and what we needed, and there was definitely a void there in terms of strategy and how we were making decisions, so we developed an enterprise architecture program there, hired an enterprise architecture, did not get a new position for that, actually took an open management position, really looked at that in terms of the future of our organization and said we really need to move in a common direction, and hired an enterprise architect. So at King County, we're really looking at less of the theoretical side of enterprise architecture, more of the practical, and incorporating enterprise architecture in many things that we're doing, such things as unified communication strategies, our strategic planning effort, mainframe migration, cloud strategy, all of those things that we're entering into in King County right now. Enterprise architecture is at the core of that, and the principles that we've developed really are guiding our decision in many, many ways. And we're seeing some of the benefits, if you will, of enterprise architecture in King County, and we'll talk more about that as we go on here today.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Dot, if you could give us a little more background on what you do and maybe some of the things you find very interesting about enterprise architecture, that'd be great.
Sure. My name is Daud Santosa. I have been as a Chief Technology Officer for the last 15 years, both in the private sector and the government. Overall, I have 28 years experience, 13 years in the private sector and 15 years in the government. In the last 15 years as a Chief Technology Officer, I have led transformation in many different agencies, as well as commercial. I ran from the small startup company to make it grow to 300 people, as well as the transforming organization like U.S. Patent and Trademark to enable them to build a new business in a online business capability like sales services, and the Department of Interior in the department level, as well as now in the National Business Centers. So what I found out, the most important aspect of EA is how do you leverage EA that can transform the organization by leveraging new technologies or emerging technology. More importantly, it's not just transforming the culture, but introduce the new technology to the new organization and create opportunity for the business as well as for the new IT services. So over the past 3-4 years, when I joined National Business Center, we do not even have an enterprise architecture team. So the director of National Business Center back then asked me to create this new structure organization to provide some best practice and thought leadership and lesson learned, and to enable National Business Center to leverage new technology. Primarily, what I like to really focusing more, not just implementing the technology per se, but addressing what the business and the mission challenges. That is the most important thing. Throughout my career, I don't really implement technology for the sake of technology. Most what I have done, implementation of EA and the technology based on the business and the mission's needs. So we have done so many things in the last 4 or 5 years in the National Business Center, from implementing cloud from the get-go. I think 5 years ago we have implemented cloud. I established the governance aspect, technical review board, and enterprise architecture. The enterprise architecture that I led is not just from the conceptual level, from the strategic level all the way to the solution level that provides solution to over about 65 line of business projects. So to me, it's important to see the concept of EA is not just the concept from strategic perspective, but it's all the way down to help the business provide the consistent solution across enterprise and provide the thought leadership, and more importantly, create opportunity for the business to enable the business to create new services.
Thank you, Dad. So we're going to open up with maybe a tough question for Bill. I know we had to do a little homework for this one. So over lunch, we heard a lot of discussions with my peers on the federal side around the impact of sequestration and furloughs, and how do you do more with less? How do you become more efficient? How do you keep morale high? I know at the state level, they were impacted more significantly by some of the budget shortfalls and tax revenue shortfalls several years ago. So what I'd like Bill to address maybe is how they navigated that at the county level and the state level in your experience, and maybe what you learned from an enterprise architecture standpoint to better spend or invest your IT dollars and get the maximum output from that.
Okay, a couple things on that. I'll try to relate it to enterprise architecture, but there's a lot of things that go with that. So just like the federal government, county and state governments, local governments, were under a tremendous budget crunch through the recession. And I think we're coming out of it to some degree, but we'll never be the same again, I don't believe, especially in how IT supports our business customers. it's really left its mark, and I think, you know, there was a tremendous opportunity there for us to change the way we did business in terms of how IT supports our business customers. So here's a couple things that I won't go into great detail in, but a couple things that we've done in King County that I think are really going to shape our future and how we support our business customers. The number one thing we did is we revolutionized our organization and turned it into a service-focused service team organization. And we did that because we had to, because we were essentially dying in terms of what does IT do and why is it so expensive? I don't understand what you guys do for the money, so I'm just going to cut you. How many times have we heard that? So we had to reshape that conversation with our customers and our stakeholders and our legislative branch that invest money in us and say, here's what we do, here are the services we provide, here's the rate and the rate methodology for those services, here's the KPIs that we're going to be accountable to and report back on a regular basis. And by the way, you need to order these services from us, and that'll determine your IT budget. We spent 7,000 staff hours on that initiative and actually created a service catalog that has 8 end user services that our customers order and 9 IT to IT services that support those end user services, each with a rate methodology, each with its own service owner, and everybody in every staff member in our organization is part of a service team. And that has really changed the conversation that we have internally with our customers and with our stakeholders and those that invest in us and order from the services from us in terms of, now they know what we do. They might still think we're too expensive, and they do, but at least they know why. And we have a much better conversation. So such things as a workstation service, which is a device service, the conversation now isn't why are you so expensive, it's why do we have so many devices? Because each device has a cost. Why do we have so many applications, and some of which are duplicated? That doesn't seem right. Let's do something about that. And through this service concept, we've incentivized our customers to our standard platforms, be it a server platform or a workstation or a device platform. And now they willingly move instead of before, where it was more of a fight to get them to move to potentially a cloud environment or a enterprise storage or server type of environment or a cookie cutter workstation standard image type of environment, because everyone was special and they wanted special things and they deserve special things, but they didn't know the cost of being special. So where we don't have to be special, we're really encouraging them through our rates and our service structure and showing them that they can save a tremendous amount of money by going into our standard and devices. And as far as how EA, enterprise architecture, that enterprise architecture is the core of that. So all the decisions we make, we have principles for application decisions, for overarching decisions, for security decisions, for network decisions, for tools, for projects, for investments, that each service has a roadmap so that where the services are today, they need a roadmap for where they're going, and they need to show efficiencies based on their rate methodology for that. So enterprise architecture was at the center of those discussions, was at the center of forming our service structure, it was at the center of forming our roadmaps from a technology perspective, and is at the center of working with our customers on their business architecture so they can better understand what they do, their line of business, the services they provide their customers, and how our services can enable them to be more effective. So that's how we've approached, I think, the most significant thing we've done.
Excellent, Bill. So Dowd, now you've done a lot of transformational stuff in regard to really changing how you implement IT within the business and trying to make things have a larger impact on those organizations. But obviously, you probably haven't done that in an IT bubble, it sounds like. So could you talk through how the Department of Interior and the National Business Center has maybe taken that transformational approach but engaged the business partners and what it takes to engage at more of a business level and who you pulled in to achieve those things, and what some of those pros and cons or challenges were?
One of the most important things that I learned in my 15 years transforming the organization, there are three focuses that common across organizations before we touch into your subject, into your question, okay? Every time I join the organization, brand new organization, whether I'm a consultant or I'm a government employee, I have to deal with business continues bringing new projects. They cannot stop doing business, right? New requirements, new business, new system that has to be enhanced, new project that has to be implemented, and we have to support that. The second thing is hardware must be refreshed. We cannot stop planning hardware refresh, okay? And the last one that is important is new emerging technology always, that we have to consider that a part of the organization, a part of the business requirement, and also consumer, right? They really want to enable a lot of the business services into these new devices or new way of doing IT. So based on these three areas, usually I deal with the first one. It's very important. Business continue bringing new projects. So the way I approach to EA, I don't even talk about EA. I talk to the line of business executive. I just trying to listen, what is your business strategy for the next 2-3 years, right? What do you want to be from the business perspective? And then I talk about what are the new projects that coming in the pipelines. When I joined National Business Center, we have about 20 projects, new projects coming in the pipeline. And then what are the business challenges that you have to face today? So based on that, and I gather the information from them and develop the IT strategy based on that. So the challenges that, many times that business really talk to the IT because we cost too much, or our service is no good, our operation is not optimized or effective. There are tons of that coming from the business, right? So what I learned, when you listen and you start building the IT strategy to help the business addressing a lot of these business challenges, then they will basically more proactive to engage with us, to help planning together. And one of the good important thing is that we have done in 5 years, 6 years ago is trying to solve the business problem, because we are losing customers moving from mainframe to a new business, which is a new financial business. So we are losing customer. So the way I'm approach is, okay, let's just figure out how we're gonna repurpose one of the mainframe that we have, and as the same token, start looking at the virtualization to addressing all these new projects coming in the pipeline. So the EA goes center around this. If you look at this, right, from the EA perspective, we start with the business, we talk about the business, addressing business challenges, and then we start building the IT. Now, from the hardware refresh perspective, right, we have a new project coming in, new project need a new hardware, right? So at the same token, we take a look at a lot of the hardware that need to be refreshed. Then we start developing an IT investment to procure a lot of new hardware with the future in mind, from virtualization perspective, from the operational, where you want to be. So my focus in most of the transformation is leveraging a new project or where the business moving forward, focusing on EA for the future infrastructure, not today. I don't care about today. I can't help with today. Today is so messed up, most of the organization, right? So we focus on the tomorrow, where we want to be, invested in the tomorrow, then we start planning the migration along with the technology roadmap with the hardware refresh for the tomorrow.
Makes sense. Excellent, Dow. So I love to hear that working for tomorrow, but today's kind of messed up. That always makes things a little more difficult, right? We're at where we're at.
Yeah.
And so with that said, Bill, I had wanted to dig a little deeper into one of your things you mentioned. I think this ties in nicely with Dowd's, hey, things are messed up today in some cases, right? Not always, but in some places you have problems. You got to put fires out in many cases in IT. So could you dig a little deeper into the key performance indicators that you monitor for your environment, and maybe how you keep a good pulse on how things are running or where they're running right, or finding out where they're not running well? And then maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in the future.
Okay. So it's for each of our services, our service owners are responsible for reporting out every quarter to our governance business management council made up of business leaders from around the county. And they report on each of the end user services have 2 to 3 KPIs that they monitor, collect data on throughout the quarter. And then we have red, yellow, green type of a health index, if you will, for each of the services every quarter. And in that health index, we have very high standards that we report on. So for instance, on our application service, we monitor mission critical applications and the availability of that application throughout the quarter. And if the application falls below that to a certain degree, there's a yellow indicator. And if it's below that, below the yellow, it's red. And we have 99 or 98% availability as a standard. That's one standard. And then on our workstation service, which is another end user service, we monitor tickets to our service desk, and the rate of those tickets in terms of the credibility or the quality of the service. So we have quality indicators, we have availability indicators. Those are the main two for each of our services. And our project management service, we monitor things like how many projects are within 5% of their schedule and their budget for their major milestones that quarter, things like that. And what it's done, I think, what's important to realize is this cannot be a compliance effort. And you can't go to your customers every quarter and say, everything's cool, nothing happened, we'll see you next quarter, because they know better. They've been using your services all quarter, and they know exactly what's failed. And so the transparency and trust that you start to build, that we're starting to see, we have a long way to go with our customers, really comes out with these quarterly reports. And we're very transparent. Where we're red, we report on red. Where we're yellow, we report that. Where we're doing great, that comes out. But we're very transparent, and we have this saying in King County, red is good, because it creates a dialogue. And how can we improve if we don't know where we're actually falling short? The great thing about this is we're starting to see these service teams come together around these KPIs and really embrace how they can do a better job as a team, as an empowered service team, to increase the quality and the availability and the standard of the service they're providing, and take some real pride in that service. And through service teams, through these KPIs, through the reporting, and really building that transparency and trust, we're starting to see services improve. We're starting to see efficiencies in the services, which translate to rate efficiencies. And we're starting to build a more of a credible, trusting relationship with our customers.
That's excellent. So a better service, happier customer, and I assume that relates back into probably a more cost-effective IT architecture. Is that right, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, great. So Dowd, could you talk about maybe how at Department of Interior you guys measure that return on investment, or how that relates into maybe your balanced scorecards as you report those up as well?
In the past, we have a detailed service level agreement with our line of business. We also have performance indicators, monthly and quarterly, how we deal with that. But initially, the last 2-3 months, I was involved in developing our IT strategy. This is very interesting balanced scorecard and performance indicator using Norton and Kaplan framework. So what what this framework, it gives IT a way of how do you really look at our business strategy and align from the customer view perspective. But this is really strictly from the business strategy perspective. And it started with the business first, and then we look at the customer's view, and then financial view, all the way to the people. So the way we align that, each of these category for our service level agreement, I created a more detailed service catalogs. And each of the service catalog that we can map to the service level agreement, and then we decide which the performance metrics that we want to define based linked to the line of business service level agreement. So at least what we can do is we can say if line of business wants to increase network bandwidth, then we can go through all the way to the service catalog in our site. Then we can decide we cannot do that. We need to have new investment to do it. But there is alignment to the line of business priority and strategic initiative, right? So that way, everything we do must have a business be rational behind it, not just implement technology for the sake of IT without aligning to the business strategy. So that framework, it helped me to open up a new horizon. How do you really see IT in the different perspective? And I believe that framework is gonna also help how does the IT organization in the future to run as a business.
No doubt. So I think, the future's key here, right? So the enterprise architecture focuses in that direction. And we talked earlier about BYOD. We've talked about virtualization a little bit. We haven't talked a lot about cloud, though. So if we could, maybe let's turn the focus of the conversation away from maybe the big strategic stuff, but more focused on real world production cloud type deployments and what we've done maybe inside some of your organizations relating to either private cloud or public cloud, and where you see that maybe where it's at today, but also maybe where you see it heading in the future. Because I think this is an important direction for government. There's a lot of ways we can roll things out on elastic capacities or utility-based capacities where we don't necessarily have to buy new hardware. We can just buy the compute capacity, right? We can implement things using DevOps functions that allow us to move quicker and more efficiently and develop applications in new environments and new ways. But to the business, it means delivering a capability in more places, anywhere, anytime, and doing it hopefully for a lower cost as well. So Bill, if you want to maybe tackle that first, that'd be great.
Okay. So I'll stick with the service theme here. Our cloud strategy, EA was a big part of that. Enterprise architecture was a big part of that, and shaping and forming that. I can say that we're actually starting to see the fruition and the execution of our strategy. So it's a lot less talk and theory and more practical now. So I'll just run through some high-level areas of our cloud strategy because that's a long discussion as you can imagine. So we have embraced through enterprise architecture some principles around our application stack and our modernization. And those principles are SaaS first, COT second, home build third. And we really felt like we had to do that because how often do you get a crack at modernization of an application? And when you get that opportunity and that investment, it's a long time in government before you get another opportunity. So we really believe that moving away from our on-prem infrastructure to cloud environments for infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service is the future. However, through our service offerings, if we have a customer because of security concerns or just general lack of confidence in storing their data or providing a service from a cloud environment, we have a menu, if you will, of infrastructure selections from individually racked servers to individually VM racked servers to countywide virtualized environments to now soon to sign a contract with a private cloud provider that is also going to give us our DR capability. So for platform as a service, we've embraced Office 365 and we have our SharePoint environment there, our collaborative SharePoint environment. We're soon to be our intranet also in Office 365, and then we're moving our on-prem email in a phased approach to Office 365 to their G Cloud as well. And we'll also look at Office 2013 and running that from the Office 365 environment rather than loading that individually on every desktop. We're also embrace CRM Dynamics as our CRM platform, a cloud environment for Microsoft as well, and that's our CRM platform. And through EA, we've developed an enterprise data architecture that all of our customers that are going to be utilizing CRM have to follow if they really want to have applications run in that environment. So we have a common data architecture that we're moving forward with. On software as a service, we're making good headway there with our prosecuting attorney's office. They've embraced a case management system as a SaaS solution. And in that environment, I can tell you that we've seen tremendous cost savings already. The vendor and the licensing agreement is much cheaper than if we had built that ourselves. We would have spent years and millions of dollars more than a configurable SaaS solution that this vendor has. They also have DR capability, and we have to do some integration on the back end, but time to market is much faster, and we have a sustainable system for the future that meets our security requirements. So we also have our electronic health records as a consortium SaaS solution as well that we're building. So we're seeing our customers, we can give them application services much faster with SaaS. We can incorporate our enterprise architectural principles, and the time to market is substantially less, and they can use the money for other things that they would have spent on a homegrown or even a COTS solution if we had to build on-prem servers. The other thing, with our private cloud vendor solution is we spent a lot of time looking at building another data center or moving to another data center for our DR capability, which we were really struggling with. And it finally dawned on us that we had the solution within our private cloud vendor solution, in that our private cloud vendor, one of the requirements is that they have geographically dispersed data centers that we can take advantage of for those mission critical systems that need DR. So that's our infrastructure as a service provider, if you will, and we'll be moving in that direction as well. So we have, I would say, more of a hybrid cloud environment that gives our customers different varieties of infrastructure and software platforms they can run from depending on their needs and the security needs that they have. I would say our biggest challenge is CJIS and HIPAA requirements, and we want to make sure that we're compliant there, and CJIS is the most difficult right now. But with Microsoft and their G tenant for Office 365, they believe they've solved that, and with our private cloud vendor, they're also moving in that direction. But so that's our cloud strategy, and I believe we have a service model that really incentivizes our customers not to move away from individually racked, siloed infrastructure to more of these enterprise cloud environments.
Yeah, it's great to hear. So it sounds like very successful cloud deployments so far, and some nice cost savings, which is it's a great thing. So Dow, do you want to speak to maybe Department of Interior's cloud environments and what some of the innovative things you guys are doing, and if they are providing cost savings as well?
Sure. I can speak for Interior Business Center. We embarked I don't call it cloud, 5 years ago. We embarked in a virtualization journey. At that time, I developed the strategy all the way to the cloud enablement. But to me, that there are different type of cloud, like Bill mentioned about. So I want to focus on the infrastructure as a service, because that's what Interior Business Services. We have provided over 150 federal customers. So basically, we are shared service center. So 4 or 5 years ago, we embarked to this journey from virtualization and SOA environment. And based on this decision that we made 4 years ago, it helped us to enable us to develop or to implement a new technology, which is cloud. So it is important to see what the future looks like, and then it's also important to make the decision today that can help us to reach to the future. So what we did in the infrastructure as a service, we created from the EA perspective, we created a reference architecture for this, the cloud reference architecture. This cloud reference architecture drive over 40 to 67 business solution. This also drives the network architecture, security architecture. We actually simplify our CNA process because of this consistency about our reference architecture. And it helped us also because we host a lot of cloud products from other agencies. So it helped communicate it and simplify our infrastructure and our infrastructure from the reference architecture perspective. So it is important to establish that as our standard from the EA perspective. Now, as we move forward, we start learning a lot about the virtualization and about the cloud. The lesson learned that I like to share with the audience is cloud is not just technology per se. I think the basic foundation of cloud is outsourcing. It's outsourcing model. They have a different business model. So when you're outsourcing, then one thing that has to be very careful is you have to do diligence before you do outsourcing, right? You have to define the role and responsibility, the services that belongs to us or belongs to the other vendors. You have to know exactly the unit cost, the cost model associated to it. And along with the contract that you have to write, it is important to see the role and responsibility and the accountability from the cloud providers. The last thing that is important is the performance metric. Now, the performance metric is not just only dealing with the service catalog and the service level agreement. You also need to know the performance metric of the performance monitoring of the server that you buy through this cloud. I'll give you an example, because we provide cloud to other agency. I don't want to name that before as a pilot. So initially, the negotiation is based on the small to medium kind of server, okay? So for the pilot with 200 users. So as we start moving along, we basically deliver that in less than a month. It's up and running in the pilot. And during that period of time, they came back to us and said, well, Don, we need to increase to 500 users. Well, let me check, see what is the utilization of the server. The utilization is still about 20 to 30%. Okay, go ahead, no problem, right? See, we are agency to agency, we don't have to do with a contract. We just say, okay, as long as the server can, we still can accommodate you, we can crank it up to 500 users. So all the way 500 users, we still have 40 to 50% utilization. So to me, once you establish that negotiation with the cloud provider, you say, we want a small to medium or maybe large, and over a period of a month or 3 months or maybe 6 months, these servers, small, medium, and large, you only utilize 10%. So if you have that monitoring capability, you can come back to the cloud provider. Hey, we need to reduce the size of the server. We don't want, say, from medium for this one, we want to go to smaller. Then they will pay us less, right? And we pay them less. So this is important before you really start looking at a cloud as your one option, because you have to know that. Now, I mentioned about the reference architecture. Reference architecture determined what type of application or business application that really fitted into the cloud. If you have a very complex mission critical system and very large integration, 15 to 20 systems that you integrate, don't even bother to the cloud. You're gonna go broke, So to me, it is very important to really understand what are you going into the cloud provider, what do you really need, and identify from the architecture perspective. This is why architecture is really crucial in the future. You know, the solution architects and you know, the one that identify the cloud architects, those are, to me, is becoming a lot more important before really making the decision to jump to this cloud. To me, making the decision to go to cloud is easy. I can make the decision go. How do you manage that decision? That is difficult because your budget is not go up and down. Your budget is 1 year, right? Your cost model have to be very distinct, very clear. Your service level agreement and service catalog has to be very clear what service you're getting it and what service that do not really include it in the cloud offering. So to me, those are the due diligence. If we don't go there, we're gonna pay a lot more.
Great, good stuff. So we have about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes left. Any questions in the audience? All right, can we get the mic up here in the front? I think Sonny has a question. Or maybe you just want to yell it out and I'll repeat it.
It was a great conversation. I thought both speakers did a great job. Good to see you again, though. I think one of the interesting challenges.
All right, thanks.
First of all, I think great conversation from Bill and Dowd on architecture, and I think it's just tremendous to see both successful examples, and it's good to see Dowd again from Interior. One of the challenges that we have in architecture is that we always knew that there were 3 dimensions: business, technology, and culture. We never learned about culture, but culture is the strongest, business is second hardest, and technology is the easiest. And everything that we've been discussing is about technology with the little business apps, you know. Most architecture, and all of us have done this, and including even in Hawaii, we published a large architecture. They become what we call proud words on a dusty shelf, yeah? They sort of are published, but then what really becomes practical? And I think both of you have talked about some practical implementations. So how would you solve the business process aspect? Because technology usually automates inefficient processes faster unless you really re-engineer the process itself. And a lot of times we don't do that. We may support a business app in the cloud, we may actually talk about provisioning in the cloud, but we really haven't solved the problem yet. It's about information flow and business. So what would you say is business and driving technology and solving business problems, and what would success look like for you in that regard?
You want me to go first?
I'll be short. So it's all about the business, and we have this saying, it's all about the business. So I agree with you 100% that what we were getting before enterprise architecture was really part of the culture, if you will, is I want to replace a system. And then we would ask, well, what line of business or what business process does that support? I don't know, but I know my system's old and I want a new one. And so through our county has really embraced lean as a principle, and many of our departments are going through lean process improvements, as is to be type of things, and it's been eye-opening for our business customers in terms of how inefficient their business processes are, and they can't blame IT if they have their inefficient. So through that and aligning our enterprise architecture program with helping our customers build an architecture for their department based on their line of business and their business processes, and not just going right to, well, I need 400 iPads and I'd be much more efficient. That's how we're going to be successful. But it is, as you said, it's all about the business and the business process. That's the business IT should be in, is enabling efficient, cost-effective business processes for our customers. And we're not there yet. We have a long way to go in convincing some of our customers, but we're on the right path.
Hi, Sunny. Nice to meet you again. That's a great question. I think based on this is how I want to tackle that. My experience at the U.S. Patent and Trademark, as well as the Department of Interior and Interior Business Office. The way I approach, if you mention about the business process, it means the business application, right? Now, I don't want to make a statement like generalized statement, but what I found out, a lot of the IT leaders in the federal government, they don't come from the business apps background. They come from the infrastructure background. So my experience, 15 years in the private sector, I came from business apps background, which is a lot of building a business application. So I definitely understood what you're saying then. So the way my approach to the line of business to look at what is their new projects, back to when I joined IBC, and I also joined Patent and Trademark. The same thing, they have a new business requirement, new project coming in the pipeline. Those are the best opportunity to engage, okay? You engage with them and you add value to them. You come to us early, and this is how we want to help you, you know, to make your project become successful, whether this is custom apps or COTS product or anything from the business requirement perspective, right? Once you engage, you bring all the team together and start building the solution for the future with this new project from the business. So to me, this is what I envisioned in the future from the CIO responsibility. CIO has to take the business application to become the owner of it in some of them. And maybe not, but most of them, you have to start taking the ownership to building the business apps. One, the very, very kind of like a practical way to deal with the mobile apps. You know, start taking the responsibility to build the mobile apps in your organization. That's give them the value. So it's kind of like you help win the IT organization by delivering a new technology for enable the business through the mobile apps. Once the trust between the line of business and your IT organization, hey, this is good, they can do this. Then they start taking, you know, we can start working together with them, building their business apps together. So another thing that I learned too in the past is some of the business app, like from the shared services perspective, only the IT organization that have the ownership. Business cannot own. For example, I implement at the Patent and Trademark, we develop a component. This component initially is built about $2 million. It's 1.2 million line of code, I think. And these components, I was involved in that heavily, from the design all the way to implementation. So the first rollout, and one contractor is the one that built this component, and then through the review process, and I have another vendor come in and trying to implement the same component. So I stopped that. Well, I get into trouble by stopping that one, but that different story. But I stopped that one, and I asked them to build different components. So that component has been reused over 1 year by 15 different projects. Right? So based on that, you bring your credibility, your organization, to build the business apps. So that component is perfect for the IT organization to own that, because you have to manage, you have to do version control, because it being used to multiple different line of business and multiple different projects. Does that answer your question?
All right, so I wish we had more time for more questions. This has been a really great conversation. Hopefully you've learned a few things along the last 50 minutes or so. The good thing is we're going to step out for some cocktails here in a few minutes, and
Yes.
Chesapeake Foyer, and you guys can grab these two gentlemen and pick their brains even more. So we appreciate your time today. Jessica, is there anything else we need to make announcements for? We have the gala dinner tonight, right?
No, you did my job for me. So immediately outside to your right are the cocktails, and then we'll go into dinner at 6:15.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much.